Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. What is an unconventional way your parents taught you a life lesson as a kid, which makes you think to yourself, whoa, that was good parenting now that you're older? Told me from young adolescence that no matter the situation, if I was drunk or high or whatever, if I was ever in trouble I could call my dad and he would come pick me up, no questions asked. It seemed unconventional compared to my friends with strict parents who went buck wild when they weren't under their supervision. But it taught me to stay safe and smart, and I ended up being a pretty good and stable kid who knew I could go to my parents if I needed them. We had a similar system. I knew that questions would be asked, but that I wouldn't get judgment. I only had to call my mom for a ride one time, and I did it without hesitation. My mom showed up with a bottle of water, some crackers, and a bucket for if I got sick. Teaching your kids that you are there for them, even when they are not perfect, is the best parenting strategy for building kids who trust you. That is the sweetest thing. I hope to be a cool mom like that one day. That is good parenting. Every parent should strive to act like that. When I was in college I started suffering from panic attacks. The very first one I had. I woke up at 4 or 5 am trying to figure out why I was struggling to breathe. My mother is a nurse practitioner and so my first thought was to call her. However, it was extremely early in the morning and I was afraid that she would be angry with me. We didn't have the greatest relationship at the time and honestly it's still a struggle. She is extremely judgmental and it's hard to come to her with challenges. Anyways, I cannot stress how important it is to make your children feel comfortable coming to you with problems. At 20 years old, I was still terrified to call my mother, a highly trained medical professional, while facing a medical emergency. When I was 3 I always kicked my shoes off in the car seat. Mum would have to put them on again at every destination. One time we came home and there was snow in the ground. I had kicked my shoes off again and my mom just about had it. My dad came to the car and said, okay Fiona, please get out and go inside. But daddy, it's cold. I know. Never kicked my shoes off again. Tried this with my kid. She got out and played in the damn snow. I go barefoot any time of the year if I can. I walk outside in the freezing rain, snow, ice. My husband looked at me and said, figure it out. She's yours. He is rarely ever barefoot. Hates anything touching his feet, yada yada. I never figured it out though. I just let her be barefoot now and take flip-flops wherever we go just in case the shoes come off. LOL. Looks like there's a lesson in here too. Just let the damn kids be. They'll be fine. There definitely is. In some cases parents just need to let kids be kids. My daughter doesn't get sick from the cold. She gets sick from the damn germ incubators these hover parents send to school. They can't build immunities to anything if they aren't allowed to touch anything outside without protection. Becky, disclaimer, I am not talking about anything related to the current COVID issue. Letting me drink straight vanilla extract. Mine was go ahead and eat that pepper. Just don't come begging me for water because you were too dumb to listen. My dad always pitted my brother and I against each other in Tabasco chugging contests. He said the winner would get hair on their chest. And what 6-year-old doesn't want to be just like dad? I've had to slow a bit down on the spice in my 40s. But I spent years as the person who could eat everything too hot for anyone else to touch. Nice. I ate that pepper and stonefaced it. I was maybe 7 or 8. It was love at first burn. Now in my 30s I always order the hottest wings, hottest curry, etc. I logically know I should slow down but it's just so darn tasty. When I asked a question she didn't know the answer to, my mother would go out of the way to find an answer or find someone who knew. This humanized her and allowed me to understand that you don't have to be an expert on everything but you should always know where to look for answers. I'm a primary school teacher and I use this technique too. We write the question on the board and as a class we think of all the different methods we could use to try and answer it. Then whoever answers it by the next day gets a special prize. It's such an underrated tool to make kids more independent and instill curiosity. Props to your mum. I work in special ed, predominantly with students who are high functioning, and this is a great tool to use with kids who are non-compliant. Once they engage it's easy to teach them. Have you ever had a kid know the answer already as soon as you put up the question? My parents never had expectations for grades when my siblings and I were growing up. They would say, as long as your work is authentic and you know that you gave it your best effort, that's all we care about. My parents would never scold us if we received a bad grade. They never voiced any expectations they may have had concerning post-secondary education, and they would give out the same amount of praise whether we received a B or an A+. My parents now have 4 high-achieving children at prestigious universities with very healthy attitudes towards education. Your children are more likely to appreciate and excel at learning, attributed to their own genuine curiosity, if it is not something they are repeatedly pressured to perfect. My parents were like that as well. At the end of each school year we would always get a present when we got our final grades. No matter what the grades were, my mom just said, as long as you finish the school year, you will be rewarded for it. So I've never felt pressured to get good grades. I only knew I should continue even if it doesn't turn out perfect. Now both my sister and I have a master's degree and are currently working on our PhDs. Same here. If the best that I could do was 75, then that was fine. But if that 75 suddenly became a 65, my father would have a talk with me. We never had to be the best, but we were always expected to try our best. I have never experienced jealousy quite like this. I got my first paycheck from the first job I ever worked. My dad drove me to the bank to cash it in, and as we are walking out I'm counting the money in my hands because I honestly couldn't believe that it was all mine. My dad then rips it out of my hands and starts running. Obviously, I start sprinting after him, and when we finally get to his car I go, what the hell was that for? He said, if you're stupid enough to flaunt money like that, someone else is gonna take it. It doesn't matter if you have a $5 bill in your hand. Some idiot might kill you for it. He eventually had me back my money, but I was still a little salty for the rest of the day. No, but that really is an important lesson. People kill each other every day for something that sometimes isn't even worth $1. I never take money out when I'm in public. Good lesson, good dad, and good boy. Like in Jigsaw, how much is a human life worth? $3.14. They got me to try a bunch of food that I wouldn't be comfortable with at a young age. I remember the day that my mum told me special fish cakes were actually calamari and I had been eating squid rings. But I realized it was damn tasty and it opened my mind a little. My mom wouldn't tell me her opinion of a food until I had tried it myself. Consequently, she had a little broccoli loving child. When she herself hated it, she didn't want her own opinions to affect mine. I mean, I'm the only child of a single parent. She knew her opinion, as the only adult in my life, would carry some weight. So if I said, is this food good? Her response would always be, why don't you try it and see if you like it? Simple. Haha, I will never forget when I saw 3 kids bawling their eyes out at their mom when the broccoli ran out. But mommy, IWAAANT broccoli, there was spaghetti and sauce on the table and these kids really want their broccoli. This is so important. My Mill is the fussiest eater, and every time she says she doesn't like something, without trying it, my Bill says he doesn't either, even if he's had it before. Not letting me get a dog until I was old enough to take care of it. Same. My sister and I wrote a puppy constitution that laid out all of responsibilities and my parents were impressed by it. It should have been named that Puppy Articles of Confederation because we didn't follow through for shit. A well executed Articles of Confederation joke. I literally laughed out loud. I asked my family for a dog, so they adopted an older dog who didn't like me at all. I swore I'd buy my own when I moved out. I moved out at 21 and my best boy is still sitting next to me 9 years later. Been through countless rentals and life's ups and downs. People didn't believe I would keep him. He's the best dog. My husband threw a tantrum when he was little because his mom wouldn't buy him something he wanted, and his mom got down next to him and said, now I will never buy you that for the rest of your life. He never threw a tantrum again. I laugh every time I think of that story. It's just so hardcore, but it worked. My sister and I, both 21 plus, would throw out obnoxious tantrums to show my little brother, 4, how silly he looked. It was fun. We would start stomping our feet and crying and do that annoying kid's wail. He would mostly end up laughing, but he never threw more tantrums. Or, We would let him walk to the cashier with the item and have the cashier ask him for money. The shock of having a stranger demand money quieted him. We sometimes film our daughter when she throws tantrums. It actually tends to increase the intensity of them when she sees a phone come out, but she's able to laugh at herself a little when we show it to her once she's calmed down. The frequency of the outbursts diminish significantly after applying this approach. Damn, that's hardcore, but I respect it. After throwing sand in my sister's eyes so many times, which resulted in my mom hanging out with us in the sandbox, my mom took a kiddie shovel of sand and flung it in my face. Most people would say, that's so mean. But I don't blame her. I was a little behind-wipe that wouldn't stop doing behind-wipe things until I learned the hard way. One of my aunts had a biting phase that lasted until my grandma saw her bite a kid, scooped her up, and bit her back. My mother did that to my brother. Never bit someone again. I nipped one of my son's ears because he kept biting the puppy's ear. He quit. Not making a big deal out of nudity or body functions. Sure, but if I knock and you say yes, can you at least put your D away when I walk into your room? Or just say you are busy? Sorry mom. It's just nature. Not like you've never seen one before. Aunt told me all about your past. Yes, but if you're going to yell at me to make you a bagel and deliver it to your room, please put your D away, or at the very least stop masturbating for 10 seconds while I bring you food, lol. More stories please. And how long did it take you and your brother to calm down that day? Do you get along now? OP killed his brother. It was the only way. Call me Kane. Join our community Discord, link in description. My parents divorced when I was a baby and pretty much ignored me my whole life. But my mother would punish me by making me read this huge history book, Roman Empire through World War II, and my dad would make me clean and polish his tools. By the time I was a teenager I was pretty well read and handy around the house. Have you ever purposefully misbehaved to learn what was in the next chapter? I really did. Well, if the chore was something I hated and the next chapter was interesting, I'd just take the pages. Came out to my parents last year about my mental health issues and they gave me all the help I needed. They stayed with me during my anxiety attacks even if they were late in the night and paid for my counseling even though they don't legally have to. I probably wouldn't be as mentally healthy as I am now without their help and support. Best parents ever. Treasure them. My mom just tells me everyone is depressed and you have to make yourself happy. Like, thanks, mom. That's the hardest part for me. I used to be extremely depressed, to the point where I tried hanging myself. My ever-loving friend is the only reason I am still alive. She talked me down over the phone countless times, and whenever I am tempted to give in to self-harm, I just call her and she makes me feel better. I know I should come out to my parents, but I don't have the strength. I am not very close with my mom. And my dad hasn't done anything to deserve it. He's such a great guy and it would ruin him if I told him. Your dad will not be ruined if he found out. He will be ruined if anything happens and he didn't have the chance to help. Sorry if it sounds patronizing. I obviously don't know the full details, but I definitely recommend telling your father. I don't think she meant to teach me anything, but I learned something nonetheless. I was drinking hot cider on a bumpy hayride and trying to keep the cider from spilling by holding it completely still. My mom told me to sway the cup in unison with the cider so it doesn't splash out. It taught me how to manage people like in managerial positions or kids, especially teens. You can't expect to keep a vice grip on someone to control them, or they'll lash out. You have to give them some lenience for mistakes, independence, or rebelliousness. That is actually amazing. It's super simple yet really deep. I agree. It makes so much sense. Wish someone had taught me that when I was a single parent and trying to keep a grip of my whole life. A little lenience here and there would have made a huge impact. Now I'm just picturing Uncle Iro give the same advice but with tea and from the back of an ostrich horse. Super deep but also super simple. When I was really little, probably like 6-7, my dad gave me $5 while we were at SeaWorld. I wanted to win one of those huge stuffed animals. So I went to spend my $5 at what was basically a gambling booth. Obviously I lost, and I had no money left. He said, "Son, that is why you don't gamble," and then he took me to the gift shop to look at what they were selling. They had a smaller stuffed animal for $5. Look what you could have gotten. Since then I never have been nor will I ever be a gambler. We did this with our second daughter at the claw machine at Steak and Shake. She put her $5 in and on the first try pulled out a big behind stuffed turbo. Then got mad that she didn't pull anything out with the 9 remaining tries. She learned something that day but I have no clue what the lesson was. It's better to be lucky than good. That strategy worked out differently for my son. We went to a Cub Scout blue and gold dinner where they had a raffle with different prizes. You bought tickets and put them in a container in front of the prize you wanted to try for. And if your ticket was pulled out, you won that prize. My son wanted the best prize, a game table that could convert for mini billiards, ping pong, basketball, darts, and a few other games. He asked me for an advance on his allowance to buy tickets. I gave him the money, thinking it would be a good lesson for him. I pointed out that everybody was putting tickets on the game table, so his chances were small, and in the end he would have no allowance and nothing to show for it. He won the table. It was actually pretty neat, although we have a very small house and there was no place to put it except the unfinished basement or the middle of the living room. My dad was a police officer and when I was 15 he asked me to come to work with him one morning. What normally was an exciting treat was an afternoon of horror. He first wanted to show me the remains of a car involved in a drunk driving accident the night before and then we went to the morgue where he showed me the 4 teenagers that were in that car. It was awful and it fucked me up, but it worked. I remember when my high school showed the red asphalt driver's education video, it freaked me out but also made me think a lot more about driving safely. Seeing it all in person at that age sounds like a nightmare. I learned that exercise can be fun if you find a fun way to do it. For example, I enjoy visiting new places and trying the food there. So when I was a child my father and I would go on bike riding trips so I could try new food and see new places. Now as an adult I know how to ski, ride a bicycle, hike, canoe, kayak, ride a horse, run, sprint and long distance, play soccer, football, baseball, ice skate, tennis, golf and several types of dance, Irish step dance, formal dancing, and DIY dancing, incorporating my curious child mind with physical activity. Whenever I didn't want to try new food for dinner, my parents said, "Don't you remember you've eaten that before? It used to be your favorite," and then I'd enthusiastically eat it. My parents did the opposite. They told me I could not possibly know if I liked some new food if I'd never tried it. To this day I still like trying new foods. My dad would make me sign single season contracts for my little league teams, basically guaranteeing that I would remain on the team until the season was over. My dad was not a sports dad, and really didn't care whether I played sports or not. He just wanted to make sure that if I committed to something, I would see it through to the end, and not abandon my team mid-season just because I didn't like it or was getting bored, which I was prone to do as a kid. To this day, I try to be very practical about my commitments, and I don't sign on for anything unless I know it's something I can fully commit to. Anything from work projects, after school clubs, I'm a teacher, coaching, being a groomsman in a wedding. I consider how committed I can be. The irony of the lesson is that I think I end up saying no a lot more than most people, because when I sign on, I'm committed to the end. My parents were big into this too. If you started a season of a sport, you played till the end of the season. Then you can do something else next time. I had a friend who quit in the middle of the swim season in high school and I was appalled because I was raised not to do that. They neglected me to the point where I had to figure everything out for myself, and made me realize that I can't count on anyone. So now I'm a self-made man who is successful at my job. The only downside is I'm angry and depressed all the time, and I feel the most lonely when I'm with a group of friends. Yeah, but whoa, that was not good parenting. They made you angry, depressed, and the rest. You made you successful. My parents were abusive and I spent my childhood in fear. Made me the best worker in the world cause I think ahead of every possible outcome. Telling me the basics of how babies are made, that is, man and women have sex and a baby comes out of the V. When I was 5 or 6, mom didn't say anything graphic. Just man and woman have sex. Baby is made. Baby comes out of V. She said it way better than how I just phrased it. She straight up told me she never understood why parents use the stork analogy. She knew that we would learn the truth eventually. So why delay the inevitable? I didn't even care about what sex actually was. I was just glad I knew how it worked mostly. The fact that you put quotes around man and woman have sex, baby is made, baby comes out of the leads me to believe that this is, in fact, exactly what your mother said to you when you were 6. When I was 5 or 6, my mom and I were watching Animal Planet. I was in love with educational TV and Animal Planet was one of my absolute favorites. They showed a clip of 2 animals mating and I was like, "Mommy, what's happening?" And she was taken aback at first. She said, "They're making a baby." I said, "How?" She said, "The male puts his N in the V and then he ejaculates and the sperm hit the ovary and a baby grows." She said in more child-friendly terms that I would understand. I then said, "But it looks like he's putting it in the butt, lol." So then she had to explain to me animal anatomy, and me being the child I was, this led to a very long conversation of how does that work go? Why is it like that? What does that mean? And my mom, as shook as she was that I was asking these questions at the age I was asking them, explained everything I asked about. It wasn't so much about what she was telling me but more about how she wasn't afraid to tell me. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.